Hi guys, welcome to today's episode of a retro review, and we are going to be looking at two of probably the most popular 1Ds when I was growing up. So we have the 1D Mark III and then the last of the crop sensor 1D range, the 1D Mark IV. Both of these have a 1.3 times crop, and I wish Canon would make a 1D series or an R1 series with a crop in it, but have a 1.6. That would be absolutely amazing. It might be a dream of mine to see that. But let's first of all go through the technical specifications of these cameras, and then we'll look at some imagery, and I'll tell you my overall thoughts. So here we have both cameras side by side. We've got the 1D Mark III here on the left, 1D Mark IV on the right. Physical body, as with most 1Ds, they look pretty much the same. If you look at these front on, you hit these parts here, you would look at it and go, okay, they're both the same camera. But there are a few subtle differences between the two, which make it a little bit different. They both have their crop sensor, 1.3 times crop sensor. You have your 10 megapixels on the 1D Mark III, 16 megapixels on the 1D Mark IV, and that does make a huge difference in the quality between these two cameras. Battery wise, we get them out here, we'll go on the side. LP-E4 and LP-E4. So both use exactly the same batteries. That is obviously a third party one, that is the Canon own, and they work absolutely fine with third party batteries with no problems at all in my experience, so don't worry about that. Just make sure you get a nice quality one and you won't have a problem. If we carry on, move to the sides of the cameras here, so we'll move to the side on each. There are slight differences here, so when you go to the Mark IV, you then gain your HDMI output and you get your mic output, which you do not have on the Mark III because of no video functions there at all, even though they're very basic video functions on the Mark IV, and I have never personally found the need for them. Back of the cameras, again, look very, very similar. You've got your menu and info buttons in the same location, you've got your back button focus on both, your top hats, your big screens, and everything where you'd expect it to be. Card wise, both use the same CF card and a SD card, and you obviously always shoot to the slowest card, so you usually shooting to the speed of the SD card, unless you use the 1CF Express card on there. Top down wise, which we've got them both in view for you there. Again, nothing much different on here. You've got all your light buttons. That's actually quite useful. I've used that quite a lot. The light button to show the screen up a bit better. I think the screen kind of might be different on both cameras. I think one's blue and one's orange. You've got your normal switch dial, your shutter there, and everything, your drive modes around the corner. Same hot shoe and same AF point on there. Going through the sort of more generic specs on there, we've obviously gone through the megapixels being the fact that you have 10 and 16 like that, and that they are both a 1.3 times crop. As for AF points, they both have 45 AF points and 19 across point cross type. And the other thing, which is pretty much identical, is frames a second. You still get 10 frames a second on both cameras. It's just that megapixels is jumped up to the next level, and again, this being that higher megapixels does make it just so much sharper, and the AF system on here was so much more reliable than it was on the Mark III. There's so many photos I missed with this camera, and I hardly miss any with the Mark IV. So this is the camera I definitely recommend out of the two of getting, but we'll go through that in more details in a second. They're both about the same sort of shapes and sizes. Say they are based around the same body. They are pretty much identical. It's just the depth is slightly different. The Mark IV is 90mm deep rather than 80mm deep, so there's a slight little discrepancy there. As I sort of glossed over, you get live viewing on the Mark IV too, which is why you have that HDMI system on there, which you don't have on the Mark III. So now we've gone over those technical sort of side of things and looked over both cameras. Let me tell you my overall thoughts of both cameras. So here we have the comparison photos. We're always going to have the 1D Mark III on the left and the 1D Mark IV on the right. Now, colour wise and everything like that, both absolutely fine, no complaints there at all. With the sharpness of the image, the 1D Mark IV is noticeably sharper in my opinion, especially when you zoom in. That is obviously partly due to having more megapixels, almost twice as much. It's going to make a huge difference. But also, I just always found, and always do find, the 1D Mark III's autofocus just not 100%. It's always either on it or slightly off, whereas the 1D Mark IV you can be a bit more reliant on and know that you're going to get the shot you're kind of looking for. So there is a little bit off here, obviously slightly different lighting conditions, but the image you get out of these two on the 1D Mark IV is a much nicer, cleaner image. So here we are again, two birds here, quite a bright bird in the form of a parakeet on the left of the 1D Mark III, and then another blue tit on the Mark IV. The colours are a little bit more vibrant. These are both the raw imagery that's come out of the camera, and there's that bit more vibrancy, even though obviously the bird on the left is a lot brighter naturally. The colours aren't quite as drawn out on the 1D Mark IV, but that can obviously be edited in post. But raw out of the camera, there's a little bit more vibrancy from the Mark III. Sharpness wise though, the 1D Mark IV wins hands down. When you zoom in on the eyes on both of these, the blue tit is nice and sharp, what you want to be, and the parakeet is a little bit slightly off. The focus point was on there, but it's not as sharp an image, and say that does sometimes come down to the fact that you only got 10 megapixels on the Mark III compared to 16 on the Mark IV, so that is always going to make a bit of a difference for sure. But yeah, that's those two side by side. I picked these last year just more to show you what happens when you get everything right, really. The 1D Mark III here focuses exactly you want to. Horizon's a little bit off, that's my fault, not the camera's, but the way it's like frozen the action here on the left, absolutely brilliant. The water, nice laser droplets there, really nice image. Colours are really nice too. It's in focus in where you want it, and just a great photo from the 1D Mark III there. And then on the 1D Mark IV, again, colours really nice with the feet and the beak and the eye there being the orange sort of standout colours. And then you got the water detail, really nice down to the waterfall, and just a really nice sharp overall image. So it does show you both cameras can be super sharp when you get everything right. So looking at the overall on these two cameras here, you've got, say, the Mark III, the Mark IV. Pricing wise, you can pick these up for about 150, 160, 220. As cheap as you can kind of see one of these for. If you're going to go for one of these, go for the Mark IV. You get so much more image quality with the Mark IV, as I've said over and over again during this video, and also the autofocus is absolutely incredible compared to the Mark III. It's so much more reliable. It's still a very tough body. You're going to get sharper, quicker to focus images, and more hit rate than you get with the Mark III. Now, yes, it costs a little bit more. You're talking about 50, 60 quid. If you can't afford that and you're looking at a 1D, then you're kind of looking at the wrong thing anyway. I actually preferred this over a 7D Mark II, just because the build quality felt a lot nicer. The fact you got the built-in grip, and even though it was a slightly older camera than the 7D Mark II, I just felt the image quality you got and the colours and everything just looked and felt a little bit nicer on this, and then that went all out the water when I got the 1DX. But with this being the last of the 1D crops bodies, I kept this as a secondary body for at least 2-3 years when I had the 1DX, and then I only really stopped using this when I got my 1DX Mark II, and then my 1DX became my secondary body. And if I didn't go down that route and was still using my 1DX, that would still be my secondary body, because having that little bit extra crop, but knowing you've got that pro quality imagery and everything, all the wizardry that Canon do inside of that body is incredible. And I really, really wish that they do it again. Obviously now you can do it in a digital sense, so you can make your, like the R5 I know definitely has this, where you can artificially make it a crop body, but it does it digitally, so then you lose image quality. Every time you bring the crop, you can go up to like a 2 times or something silly, and you're basically at that point halving your image quality. But it's also a digital zoom in the body, which means you lose image quality because of that as well. And at that point, looking at the results that people have got with that, you might as well have just shot the photo and cropped it with a normal full frame body. But maybe my prayers will be answered, and one day Canon will make a crop version of the R1, or may make the R3 into their crop body. That would be what I would do personally. And then you've got something really quite unique, because no one else does that anymore, and Canon were the only real people kind of doing that for such a long time before they went full frame. Let's say if you've got a 1D Mark III and you love it and everything like that, great, good for you. I never got on with this camera. I never managed to get really nice imagery from it. Talking to other people who've used it as well, they had the same issue with the focusing just not being reliable. And that just really, it was my first 1D, and it was like a higher than a low moment when I got it, until I got something like this, and it was saved again for me, worth buying the top end camera bodies. So I hope you enjoyed the video, hope you're enjoying the series, because obviously this goes on for quite some time and takes a little bit of work to get everything together. The next video will be the 1D Mark IV versus the 1DX, and then we'll be moving on to the 1DS series, and then I've got to go and work out what we're going to be doing next after that. So if you're enjoying it, please drop a subscribe, comment down below if you have any input on what we've talked about today, any sort of old stories of you using these cameras, and let us know in that comment section. It's really useful and really good to see those comments pop up, and it does help the channel too. And I will see you in the next one. Cheers.